I ain't gonna lie.
Hey.
Then y'all are right. Something happened here. I ain't gonna.
And I'm still here.
I apologize. You said, yo, apologies don't mean anything to me.
And the change behavior is gonna be, I ain't gonna be around to see if you change the behavior.
Flip and Melyssa Ford versus Joe Budden. There is currently speculation that Melyssa Ford left for a number of reasons. The potential confrontation between Flip and Melyssa Ford is among the most compelling. However, we do know that she hasn't been seen since appearing in an episode on August 21st. I've seen that there have been a number of difficulties over the past year that we might have overlooked. First, there was the entire episode in October 2024, where she would argue with Flip and leave the set. However, in 2025, she had a tirade that led to her suspension. Your mothers all gave me the impression that I had grown another. However, the entire notion has been the focus of the final 40 minutes. Sometimes you guys irritate me. Then there was the dispute around the April 2025 trait. Utilized as a tool. To get under Joe's skin, you were first utilized as a tool. There was nothing that I fell into. What have I been forced to listen to for the past 20 years, do you know? Indeed, I'm going to support music that honors my inner self. Of course, I have spent 20 years being made fun of. Additionally, I believe that the cast perceived her as being artificial and fake. Although it was not a huge deal, it was a testimonial and confirmed what the show's cast already believed. Additionally, April was the month that she would be suspended once more. It seems as though I am not permitted to acknowledge the things that other people acknowledge. Many of the comments I see claim that there is a lot of dogpiling. Every time Melyssa speaks, someone interrupts her frequently or makes a poorly timed joke that either downplays what she's saying or simply tries to divert the discussion. Many individuals in the comments section of my channel would claim that I was making things up or that I had no idea what I was talking about when I was creating content concerning her strange, sporadic, and inexplicable absences from the show. However, I would always counter that by stating that one of Melyssa Ford's biggest problems was that she didn't take part in the show when she shut down.
Breakup, right?
You a hoe.
After that little Uber to the Bahamas was over.
Oh, no, I was outside.
I mean,
You thought I was. You thought.
Hey,
It's fine, guys. I'm glad to be.
I don't know what he's doing.
You ain't gonna lie. You're a different breed.
Hey, what's up, Mel?
Chillin'.
She was acting strangely while on the Pantheon, and Joe would be clearly irritated by that.
Like he was in a safe space to be vulnerable.
Melyssa, you could quit this job. You could quit, girl.
Today, we reach the point where, in my opinion, the most recurring plot point about Melyssa Ford's absence is a confrontation with Flip. In fact, there's a scene in one of this week's most recent episodes where Flip makes reference to Joe Budden choosing him over her. I was unable to locate the clip now. In order to use it as a point of reference going ahead, I'm attempting to triangulate it. However, there are enough tea leaves to make it impossible for Flip and Melyssa Ford to be together anymore. And the reason I believe that people are putting this in the wrong context is because Joe didn't truly choose Flip over Melyssa Ford. Melyssa Ford is being passed over in favor of Joe. Joe Budden will not comply with any requests or demands made by Melyssa Ford, not for any reason other than her efforts alone. Melyssa Ford has never made any demands because her contributions have never been substantial enough. Additionally, she hasn't engaged in the program to the point where she could be the shot caller or anything like that. So if she makes any demands, it will be because she is leaning toward HR-type methods and women's empowerment. For example, I believe Flip would be gone if Parks or Mark Lamont made the decision to have him taken out. You can see that several members of the cast are content as a result. They appear rejuvenated. Ishes was always joyful till Melyssa Ford vanished from the show. The same is true for the other performers. I am aware that Parks appears more enthusiastic now. Flip seems to despise her the most. Thus, it's strange that he's the only one who doesn't look excited. Additionally, Joe appeared gloomy in a recent episode and yelled at the cast for using their phones. I won't allow anyone to use a phone on this set next week. With a cast that doesn't seem to appreciate him as much as they ought to, given the amount of money he reportedly gives them, it then appeared as though he was at his wit's end. The amusing thing is that he would eventually receive a call from someone and have to leave the stage by himself.
Position you're in because there's no pressure to do anything else. Lock that up.
All in the bag, man.
Now, I wanted Joe to go on a tirade about not letting phones on broadcast and then receive a really serious call that forces him to accept it and leave the set. Was this regarding Melyssa Ford? I wondered. Could Ian have given him an update over the phone that he didn't particularly like? I'm not sure. However, I am aware that when Joe would discuss Rory and Malm, it would occasionally come up on air, causing major problems and a lot of drama. This may have contributed to Joe's on-air behavior. Additionally, there was a recent episode when Flip would walk into this diatribe and say that he apologized and that you had to be able to apologize for certain things.
I said, yo, I apologize. You said, yo, apologies don't mean anything to me. And I agree with you.
However, Joe Budden confronts him, saying, "You have been acting like you're sorry on the show for the past few years."
Apologies change behavior, to which you never do. So
I was just getting ready to say.
you. So your apologies.
However, you always wound up doing the same thing. And I genuinely believe that the only reason he's permitted to appear on the show is that I have no idea. I am unable to even respond to that query. I was making an effort to think things through. However, it seems absurd to me that Joe Budden had so much passion for Rory and Mal's lack of professionalism during his time on the pod, and then he lets Queen's Flip roll without any meaningful consequences. Everybody says he's dynamic. You have to allow flip-flops to happen, and in my opinion, it has made his company appear easy and shows how little Joe has actually improved as a businessman. Flip has, in my opinion, given the show a boost, but as of right now, the returns are really on the declining side, meaning that nothing he offers is worth the pressure. However, please share your thoughts on this theory with me. I will also create a video about the lawsuit, which is the other alternative argument. Yes, exactly. People are claiming that Melyssa Ford is missing from the pod due to a legal dispute over the sleepwalking incident. However, I'm not sure. That's hard for me to believe. However, there are still a ton of documents and proof to back up that argument. I do think it deserves its own video, but I wanted to make one final recommendation before I wrap up. The start of Melyssa Ford's own podcast marked the beginning of the end for her tenure on The Joe Budden Show. She began to feel a little worn out and anxious when she started her own podcast. Her tendency to lash out at show participants, which left them with a terrible taste in their mouths, was evident on the pod. And you would soon realize that the entire issue would be the subject of far too much controversy. Melyssa Ford would assemble an entire team and establish her own brand by leveraging the Joe Budden podcast. Recall the Drake hoodie incident, in which she produced a public relations statement that made Joe Budden appear to be a patriarchal man by redirecting the Drake website to his website rather than Melyssa Ford's. According to her, women have been marginalized and their voices have not been heard for far too long, but now we are speaking up. That, in my opinion, gave Joe Budden a less than favorable impression of Melyssa Ford. Additionally, I believe Melyssa Ford stated publicly that, she was relying on people from the show, like Flip. Recall Flip's statement that he assisted her in launching Hot and Bothered. Therefore, I believe that when Melyssa Ford needed help, the podcasters loved her, but she would behave extremely diva-like and famous around them, which is how she lost the locker room. However, you never know what might occur next. Is it speculation? Or did Melyssa Ford actually sign an NDA? Since we all know that Joe Budden has a soft spot for Rory and Mal's departure and their successful use of the Joe Budden podcast to establish their own platform, I believe that may be the case. Next, we must examine Melyssa Ford's legacy. In essence, it appears like the same pattern is being repeated, much like with Hollywood Unlocked. She vanished for a time, it was uncertain if she would board the pod, and before you knew it, she had permanently left. Okay everyone, we should monitor all of this drama. Was Flip selected by Joe Budden instead of Melyssa Ford? Or did he simply not give Melyssa Ford enough thought to make a decision that would have benefited her?